All right, thank you, Michelle. So good afternoon. Like she said, my name is Amy Leitner, and I'm excited to be kicking off the final session of the first day of the 2024 Families SCN2A Family and Professional Conference. My sincerest thanks to the foundation for letting me share Bert's story. So without further delay, say hi to Bert and buckle up for Bert the Flirt, the origin story. What's the pointer? Right. It's a Thanksgiving miracle. So I took a home pregnancy test after the day after Thanksgiving, which was positive, which may not seem too remarkable, but I was scheduled the following Wednesday for surgery to remove uterine fibroids, as the OBGYN didn't think any embryo could burrow in, but this little turkey succeeded in burrowing into my womb and my heart. It was a rocky pregnancy. I was diagnosed with a blood clot and endured twice daily enoxaparin injections throughout my pregnancy. Because of the fibroids, I needed numerous 3D ultrasounds, and at 26 weeks, I was admitted with cervix funneling. Even though the midwife told me I wouldn't leave the hospital until he was born, those fibroids kept his head in place until 37 weeks, and he was just delivered early because he was breech, and I was diagnosed with preeclampsia. All right, so there he is, Robert Oliver Elm, aka Bert, born July 9th, 2015. So he just celebrated his golden birthday a few weeks ago. So I'd been worrying about him for the previous 11 weeks, and I thought I would be better equipped to care for him once he was on the outside. Little did I know, darker days lay ahead. So for about 36 hours, I had the typical newborn experience. He had his first and only clean bill of health from the pediatrician. I was concerned that he was so sleepy, and even my overnight nurse that first night had remarked that she had never seen a newborn who hadn't latched to feed, and she knew something was wrong. However, she didn't sound the alarm at that time. But my evening nurse the next night on July 10th did sound the alarm when she noticed Bert was having strange eye deviations when he did open his eyes. So with a low blood sugar, Bert earned a one-way ticket to the NICU. During his 6-week stay in the NICU, he had weekly EEG hookups, and unfortunately, this picture depicts his level of alertness during the majority of his NICU stay. The first night remains the most traumatic. For stat EEGs that Friday night, they did a test called Brains with a Z, where they placed intradermal needles under the skin of his scalp of his head. They did a spinal tap looking for any infections and did a whole host of other tests. Although they never had to put him in a benzodiazepine-induced coma, they did load him with phenobarbital, and he didn't open his eyes for a week. Unfortunately, I didn't take too many pictures during his NICU stay, but these are some of my favorites. His first outfit, and then looks like he's giving me the finger in that second picture, and then his first bottle at 10 days old with amazing OT Holly, and then a little skin to skin after one of his first EEGs. You can still see the blue marks on his head. All right, so D-Day, July 31st, 2015. I know some families wait a long time for diagnosis day. We were fortunate enough to wait just over 3 weeks, which did feel like an eternity in NICU time. We got our answer that late Friday afternoon in July. I remember the pediatric neurologist who had a heavy Eastern European accent, and I didn't understand what he was telling me. Write the diagnosis on one of those paper rulers, SCN2A. A 5-letter combination of numbers and letters that would forever change my family's life. This test report is probably all too familiar to everyone in this room, but at least there was no maybes. This diagnosis was clear-cut as a disease-causing mutation, and I mapped it for you above. Where that arrow is pointing and the tiny error it indicates was why my baby was having seizures, entirely too sleepy, and for any newborn, and called floppy by some nurses, i.e. low muscle tone. How could one predict that such a tiny error could have such catastrophic effects? I remember sitting in the NICU thinking, Why couldn't there have been an error in the gene that codes for toenails? He can live without toenails, but also, okay, if it has to be one of those 18 genes, which one would have been the easiest to treat? None of these musings would help my baby boy, though. So back I went to the genetic counselor. All right, so a couple of pieces of not so helpful advice from providers during our NICU stay. That first bit of advice was given to me by the genetic counselor, who insisted on talking with me for at least 30 minutes when Bert had the stat gene DX test ordered, but proceeded to ghost me several times when I wanted to talk about the actual results. I finally got her to return my phone call, no visits to the NICU, which she had done previously, to just tell me she didn't have any other info for me. That second bit of advice was given to me by the pediatric neurologist when I asked how could we control his seizures. I'm like, can we follow that up with a bit of positive information, please? So what is a scared family to do when they want answers? I kept asking every provider if they had seen a case like Bert's, and finally, our OT Holly told me about another family whose daughter had SCN1A and asked if I wanted to meet them, as that little girl's mom worked at the hospital. I told her, obviously. All right, enter the Umezus. I quickly learned that little girl did not have an SCN1 diagnosis, but rather an SCN2A diagnosis. The picture remains one of my favorite of Charlotte when she was training for the Twin Cities Marathon. This girl was so many things to so many people, but to Bert, she was a trailblazer. I wholeheartedly believe, had she not been diagnosed less than a year previously at that hospital, that her neurologist who was staffing the NICU that week would not have ordered a stat gene DX test for Bert. Nor would neurology have initiated maxillatine for Bert after a lidocaine infusion proved to be temporarily successful for Charlotte. Meeting her mom at the end of those dark NICU days remains one of the brightest spots during our hospital admission. I'm no more sleuth like Tracy and lack the words to even begin to describe what an amazing person she is. The morning after she sat in Bert's hospital room talking with me for hours, she had donuts and coffee delivered to her hospital room with this note: don't ever give up hope on him and what his future holds. The internet has lots of scary images, stories, and outcomes, and his may be completely different. He will write his own destiny, and over time, you will not feel like your world is crumbling around you. It is a difficult journey for sure, but I have no doubt you will be an amazing mother and are exactly what he needs to reach his highest potential. You can always be realistic, but hope and joy are everything. After 6 weeks, we were sprung from the NICU. We settled into life at home as new parents, with the baby continuing to have seizures. Although I accepted the devastating diagnosis, I was just too scared initially and overwhelmed to seek out information outside the providers at the hospital. However, once we found the family's SCN2A on Facebook, I finally found the courage to become part of an amazing community and frankly, never looked back. So in a word, the family's SCN2A Foundation means hope to me. This little foundation, who has attracted a record-breaking crowd at their conference this year, became a nonprofit just a few short months after Bert was born. I helped organize the Brooks Birthday Club, named in honor of another little boy stolen too soon by SCN2A. His family continues to fundraise so that every SCN2A warrior's birthday is celebrated. I also helped gather pictures for the foundation's warrior calendar. I met the most amazing people because of Bert, including every last person in this room. So if you're reading a doctor's report on Bert, this is what you would see. This is a lot of diagnosis. But to get a better picture of what Bert is like, I asked his friends, classmates, what they see. They say, I see Bert as a really good friend. I smile whenever I see him. I like the quack noise he makes, and he's fun to play with. Bert is always the happiest little boy and so funny. I love when he makes duck noises in class. Bert is kind, funny, and smart. He's a very hard worker. He is really fun to be around. Bert is funny. He loves to quack to make us laugh. He's energetic and always on a roll. Bert loves his friends and shows it by giving high fives, knuckles, and sometimes hugs. Art and music seem to be his favorite. Bert is one of the funniest kids I've ever met. Bert is quiet, kind, sweet, and kind of sassy. He is so much fun to hang out with. Bert has a great smile and the best laugh ever. With Bert, I don't see disability, I see possibilities. All right, so in summary, Bert is incredible and has changed my life and has positively affected the lives of so many others. I tell his story so that you'll know why I continue to fight for a cure. For Bert and all others living with SCN2A related disorders, I also tell a story to honor Charlotte, Brooks, Amelia, and all those others taken from us too soon by SCN2A related disorders. Thank you so much for your attention.